Hi, welcome to our employee training video on how to properly use a laser level. I am Scott and my partner in this video is Mark. In this video, we will be going over the required equipment, proper setup of the laser level, and measuring rod. Also, proper usage of the laser level receiver and go over what to do with the data you receive from your measuring process. The required equipment will be your laser level receiver, your measuring rod, your tripod, which will hold your laser level. Your first step will be to set up your tripod. In this process, make sure your tripod is level as possible so it'll be easier for your laser level to level itself. Now, take your laser level, line it up on the threaded hole on the bottom of the level, and screw your threaded bolt into the laser level. And now turn the laser level on with the button at the top. And then wait for the process for it to self-level, and then it will show you your laser. Now, firmly apply your laser level receiver to your measuring rod. And now in the process to find your level, slowly move your receiver down the rod. The fast-paced beep will mean you are too high, and the low-paced beep will mean you are too low. You have to find your perfect flatline sound. And now to read your laser level reading, you will mark the imaginary line on the U shape of the laser level receiver.
Now that we've shown you how to use the laser level and receiver, we will provide you with some examples of how to fill out the field record sheet. You use the field record sheet to record your individual rod readings at various points on the site, which are then used to calculate the elevations. This form should be completed as you are taking the readings. Before we get too far, we need to understand some terms. First one being benchmark. The benchmark is a fixed reference point on your site which is in a safe area and will never be disturbed. The benchmark is typically assigned an arbitrary elevation, which is usually 100 meters to avoid working in negative numbers. Next is the backsite. The backsite is the first reading that you will take with your instrument, and it will then be used to determine the height of the instrument in relation to the benchmark. Then we have the IFS, or intermediate foresight rod readings. These are the individual readings taken at various locations which will be used to determine spot elevations around the site. Now let's go back to the form. At the top of the form is your basic information, which will be specific to your project. Then there are some common formulas. Benchmark plus backsite equals height of instrument. Height of instrument minus the IFS equals your elevation. And height of instrument minus elevation equals your IFS. Let's start working with the benchmark. I've got a line here for it. So laser level has been set up. The internal self-leveling has been completed. You will then proceed to calculate your proceed to your benchmark with the rod and obtain your backsite. When we look at this example, there's our rod on top of the benchmark, and the backsite reading came up as 1.03. This will be entered here, 1.03. We don't know the height of instrument yet, but the IFS will be 0 because we're not using that. Above here says benchmark plus backsite equals height of instrument. So 1.03 plus 100 is 100.03. That is the height of our instrument. We will use that in all future calculations. So let's move it down to our first IFS reading. So now that we know the height of the instrument, we can go to various locations on the site with our rod and determine the elevations of those points. We take the rod, we set the rod up, and then we move the receiver until we hear that solid tone, and we will then record that IFS reading. Looking at this example again, in this particular instance, 1.73 meters is the IFS reading for the rod located here. So we'll put 1.73 in that column. Up here, height of instrument minus the IFS will equal the elevation. Minus our IFS of 1.73, our elevation at that point is 98.3 meters. You can proceed to do that in multiple locations on the site, and each time you'll be able to determine the elevation of those locations. Let's talk about a different example. Let's say we wanted to dig a trench. We have a specific elevation of that, or we know the depth of the trench, let's say, but we don't know how far to dig or what's it in relation to the benchmark. So we could dig a hole, put our rod in there, move the receiver down until we get the solid tone, calculate the elevation. Is it correct, or is it the right elevation? No, then we can continue digging. But by doing it this way, you have the possibility of going too deep. So there's a little bit easier way. We know what elevation we need for this trench, and let's make an arbitrary number of 97.25. We know the height of our instrument. If you look up here, height of instrument minus your elevation will give you the IFS. So height of instrument minus 125 gives an IFS of 2.78 meters. Now what you do is you just set the receiver at that location, and you can start digging. You drop the rod into the hole, and until you hear the solid tone, you just continue digging. This way you should not go too far, and you'd be able to get your trench to the right depth. One thing to note is whenever you have a deeper point, the IFS reading will be larger. You can see here that with an elevation of 98.3, the IFS was 1.7. At 97.25, the IFS is 2.78. The deeper you go, the higher your IFS reading is. Here's an example. Here's our benchmark. There's one reading. As you can see, as the terrain gets higher, the IFS readings get smaller, but as it gets lower, the IF readings get taller. Something just to keep in mind when you're using the machine. In this laser level instructional video, we have shown you the tripod, laser level, rod, and receiver. This was followed by how you set up the equipment and use the rod and receiver to get individual readings on your site. We then went into the field record sheet where you entered all your readings and then calculated your elevations. We also gave you details on how you can determine what the IFS reading should be when digging in a trench. We hope you have gained the knowledge required to use the laser level and rod and obtain elevations on your site. If you have questions or need additional information, please ask your supervisor. Thank you for watching our video.